Of the printed calendar. Senate Bill 1130, a bill to repeal a section of the code relating to the sale or transfer of or possession of with intent to sell or transfer blackjacks and other similar weapons. Report for Printed Militia Police and Public Safety.
The gentleman from Prince William, Mr. Lingenfelder.
Mr. Speaker, the Senate Bill 1130 eliminates the crime of selling, transferring, or possessing with the intent to sell or transfer blackjacks, brass or metal, knuckles, throwing darts or oriental darts, switchblades, ballistic knives, and so forth. The current penalty for such is a Class 4 misdemeanor. This bill would repeal that misdemeanor.
The gentleman from Arlington, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield for a question?
Will the gentleman yield?
For a question, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Virginia Code 18.2311, which this bill would get rid of, was originally put in place back in 1950, 1960, 1975, 1988, 2013, to address gang activity and the use of these dangerous weapons with regard to gangs. Is the gentleman suggesting that gang activity is no longer a problem in the Commonwealth of Virginia? Or their use of these weapons is no longer a problem?
Mr. Speaker, in responding to the gentleman's first question, no, I'm not asserting that gangs are not a problem in the Commonwealth of Virginia. What I am asserting is that this law, and I think the patron is asserting, that this law is not dealing with gangs in a way that eliminates gangs. And so I hope and move that we can.
Follow-up question, Mr. Speaker.
Will the gentleman yield? Gentleman declines to yield.
Speaking of the bill, sir.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill is straight out of a Victorian crime novel. Dr. Moriarty would have a field day with this. We're talking about blackjacks, brass knuckles, swords in canes, switchblades, throwing stars, and something not so funny, ballistic knives. These are dangerous, deadly weapons that in the hands of a child or a bad actor are not good for our communities to have around. This language was originally put in to keep these weapons out of the hands of MS-13, out of the hands of gangs. If the gentleman had stayed standing and I've asked him a question, there's no age limitation on the purchase of these weapons. 16-year-old.
Come to order.
A 16-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 7-year-old could go to wherever they're going to allow these weapons to be purchased and take their allowance and buy a number of throwing stars, a blackjack. How do we keep these weapons out of schools? How do we keep, because what we're allowing now is we're allowing all of these weapons to get back on the streets. How do we keep, guys, there was a companion bill to allow these weapons into private and religious schools that was offered this year and then stricken. How do we keep these weapons out of schools? Why is there no age limitation on the purchase of these dangerous weapons? This is the kind of, I think, unthinking legislation that will cause more problems than good long term. We're creating minefields that we shouldn't be creating. So I hope it is the pleasure of the body to vote against this bill. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker.
He rises.
Gentleman Prince William, Ms. Lingenfelder.
Mr. Speaker, briefly, it is against the law to bring these items on school grounds. That's what counsel told us in hearing.
Shall the bill pass? Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 56, noes 42.
Ayes 56, noes 42. The bill is passed.